Welcome to another episode Head to Head Sports. I'm your host, Brian Parker, along with my co-host, Mr. Randall Hargrove. How you doing, sir?
Good. How you doing, man?
Man, I am doing good. Man, I can smell it. I smell it.
Right around the
Football,
corner, ain't it?
it's coming.
It's coming.
Hey, and you know what else is coming around this time for people, and we are no different, but fantasy football. How about that?
Oh yeah. We are drafting in our league on Sunday, 11 a.m. Don't forget that.
That is true. Oops, hold on a second. I forgot to turn on my nice light. It's a little dark up in here. There we go. Yes, we are drafting on Sunday for our league, and then I have another league with my job, and we're trying to figure out a draft day as well. But the one that you picked for us is perfect. Early enough to get it out of the way. Please, if you're in Facebook Kings, I would appreciate if you show up and not rely on auto draft because it takes too damn long.
Hell yeah, please.
and,
God, man.
and do just a little bit of work and figure out what positions that you need and come up with a slate of people and go by your slate of people so you don't take the entire time to try to figure out, now, should I go with this or should I go with that? Bro, you should have already known who you was going to pick before this draft. And my not that my keys actually work because I came in last because everybody just got hurt on me and stuff. But the strategy is this. I'm gonna tell y'all: first round, get who you want. Second round, get who you want. Third and fourth round, go tight end. Those go real quick. If that wasn't your first and second pick, don't let tight ends start to be like 7th and 8th because there won't be that many to pick from. And tight ends, man, once you get past a certain level of tight ends, the rest of them are booty. It don't matter anymore. I did that in my my work league, and it worked for me, Rand. I drafted 3 tight ends. People were like, why you get so many tight ends?
Yo,
and I came in second.
Yeah, you get them and you save the one that you really want, and the others you can make deals with. They're just that valuable.
Exactly. Because let me tell you, running backs can go off, receivers can go off. But that tight end, if they're not in the offense that's really designed for the tight end to go off like that, like a Mark Andrews, a Travis Kelce, my man out in San Francisco, maybe a tight end in Indianapolis, any of those where the tight end is not really looked at as a receiver as much as a blocker, then, I mean, that's what you end up with. You end up with a bunch of tight ends that are blockers that don't give you any stats because they don't do anything in the offense other than block. So
yeah, and you will never
your running back is going to get touches. I mean, ain't no offense that just passes every play. They hand it off to a running back. Stay away, you know. And I would say this too, as far as running backs, stay away from systems that have 2-back systems. I know Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb sound like a good combination, but if you're going to go with one, go with the main one. You know, don't go with the second back because that'll just set you up too. You know, but so yeah, this is my little words of wisdom when it comes to fantasy.
I love it, man. It's like when I see people draft quarterback first round ahead of me, I'm like, thank you.
Right. Or I'll say, I draft quarterback like 8th, 9th round. But what will get me is when I see somebody draft the damn kicker without it being like the last or next to last or whatever. I'm like,
right. That sounds so crazy.
Yeah, it's like, do you know what you're doing? So it's like, okay, I've won a league or two before, so I can kind of say that. I ain't done too well with Facebook Kings, but the ratings are a little bit different. I mean, if you don't hit, then it's bad. If you don't hit a certain thing, it's bad. The ratings are bad. So just letting y'all know that. But anyway, we are coming to y'all live on Facebook, LinkedIn, as well as YouTube. You can check us out on YouTube at Empower TV Network. Please like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. Randall here has a actually, you got 2 bands, don't you?
I do, yeah.
You, anytime y'all have some shows coming up, please let the audience know. We'd love to hear about it, and anybody that can come out and support, definitely. The bands are actually really, really good. of course. But yeah, anytime y'all got any shows coming up soon?
Yeah, come check out Kendrick Colt. That is my variety alternative rock band. We will be in the house at Moochie's on the 2nd of September. It's a pre-Labor Day party, so drop in about 8:30, 9 o'clock and spend the night with us. You're going to hear some of your favorite tunes. So we always have a great time.
Yeah.
Brian can attest to that. He came out.
Yes, sir. And are you guys doing any more of the bike nights or anything?
Not right now. The bike nights are getting ready to go away because of the weather, but they'll be back to springtime.
Gotcha. I'll be ready then. Hopefully I can get my bike wrapped by then. I'm kind of interested to see what I can do with the Can-Am and put some wrap on that thing.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it'd be cool. Like I got some plans, but I tried to do it this year, and most of the wrap shops were like, "Hey, man, we're into the season, and what it is that you want us to do, we're not gonna be able to do. We can do some decals and stuff." And I'm like, "No, I don't want no decals. I want it wrapped." Yes. They're like, "Oh, okay." Yeah, I want some wrapping. I have this Dark Knight Batmanish thing that I like to do. So
that would be dope.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy. And get some lights on there and everything. So yeah. Anyway, so let's jump right in because I know I ran over last time, but we're gonna some of these teams we won't even have to talk about as much, especially with the AFC East and the and the NFC East. But last week we did the NFC South and the NFC South and AFC North. This week we've got the NFC East and the AFC East. So first up, let's talk about the New York Football Giants and their decision to bring back quarterback Daniel Jones. He is in his 5th year. If anybody remembers, Daniel Jones was the number 6 overall pick out of Duke University, drafted extremely high, thanks to Dave Gettleman and his overreaching. And then you got right behind Daniel Jones, Tyrod Taylor, who is poised to take over as soon as Daniel Jones starts wanting to throw the ball to the other team. Coming back at running back, you've got Saquon. My legs are thick as tree trunks. Barkley. Kenny Golladay is going to be in at receiver. Sterling Shepard's in at receiver. Kadarius Toney is in at receiver as well. And then they've got a couple of other guys in behind them. Tight end is going to be Daniel Bellinger. And then, so that's kind of where you got your offense at, Rand. How do you see this offense bouncing back after last year's finish?
Not much better than last year, to be honest. I mean, I don't like what they got in free agency. I don't like what they did on the offensive side of the ball with any weapons. I mean, they got Evan Neal, who is a really good tackle, who I thought would be on the left side. Looks like they're going to line him up on the right side, which is a little weird. So you still got Thomas over there trying to protect Daniel Jones. This didn't go well last year. The offensive line was crap last year. I just don't see the improvement.
I don't either.
No, I don't see the improvement.
I think Daniel Jones is set up to fail again. Yeah. It's going to be one of those situations that kind of reminds me a lot of the Panthers, where if you can't protect the quarterback and you're relying on your running back to be your Swiss Army knife, meaning that he's got to run, he's got to be able to catch out of the backfield, he's got to be your do-it-all person. Number one, not only are you setting Daniel Jones up for failure, but you're probably setting Saquon Barkley up for failure, because if I was a defense, I'm going to stack the box and force Daniel Jones to throw the ball.
Absolutely.
I'm going to take Saquon out of the game. Because as soon as he tries to run, there's going to be 2-3 dudes running at him, making him run for losses. There's going to be a lot of TFLs if I'm on the defense, because we're going to tackle him in the backfield. He's not going to be able to turn up and really get wild and loose. And like you said, the offensive line isn't doing a lot. There was another Evan that was on the team last year that isn't even on the team this year, and that's Evan Ingram, who's taking his talents elsewhere. So not knowing how this tight end Bellinger is going to work out versus Ingram, at least was a catching tight end. That's going to take another weapon away potentially for Daniel Jones. This is a make it or break it year. They did not offer him an extension. They basically said you're going to have to play well for us to give you any kind of extension. And then even if they decide that they're still not sure next year, they can just franchise him.
Yeah.
So they're not they weren't going to go the route of doing one of these 3-year, $140 million extensions with $80 million guaranteed and all that stuff. That's just not going to happen. So Daniel Jones could basically, I mean, honestly, this could be his last year if he plays poorly. I don't even know if he'll be a candidate for backup. I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
he hasn't shown us anything.
It's that bad. Yeah.
He's shown some ability in stretches, especially more so with his legs than with his arm. His decision making has just been one of those things where he just has way too many turnovers. It offsets any good that he does. For every good thing he does, he has 5 turnovers to counter that, and it just never pans out. So the Giants don't really look that much better. Their defense, they're running a 3-4 defense, which I don't think is going to scare anybody. But I am glad to see that they're pretty much in salary cap hell, and they're trying to basically get themselves out of the mess that Gettleman put them in. So to be continued. I think it's going to take them a couple of years to actually get better. I know my folks in the New York, New Jersey area probably don't want to hear that, but I don't look for the Giants to be competitive. Look, if you can't even be competitive in the NFC East, or least, as I like to say, you have no shot. Because only one team, I believe, is probably going to make it out of that division, and that means you need to win that division. Is it possible that a wild card could pop out of it? Yeah, but the South has to be really bad. The North has to be really bad. And I don't think either one of those are going to be the case this year. I think the South is going to be real competitive, and I think the North is going to be real competitive. And if that's the case, it's not going to leave a lot of wild card spots for the East or the and God, let's not even talk about the NFC West.
Yeah, the West ain't too shabby either.
I mean, the West got all them heavy hitters over there too. So I mean, they pulling too. I mean, the only one that you don't really have to really think about probably is Seattle.
Right.
But when you think about the NFC West, they got at least 2 or 3 heavy hitters. You think about the North. I don't know what Minnesota is going to do, but I know what Green Bay is. Detroit is starting to look. I got more faith in Detroit than I do in New York Football Giants.
Man, absolutely. The Giants are just, I said it last year. I said the cupboards were bare in New York last year, and you see how the season turned out. Well, we're right back here again. I'm saying it again. The cupboards are still bare.
Yeah.
You got your weapons in Galladay, who they got from Detroit last year, and they thought he was going to be this spectacular wide receiver number 1, and it didn't turn out that way at all.
At all.
The other wide receivers, they're all injury prone. Sterling Sharp, always injured. Kadarius Toney, injured. You got Saquon Barkley. He's not the same Saquon that busted on the scene as a rookie.
And he was recovering from that injury. And I know a lot of times they say
a lot of injuries.
You need oh God, dang it. Woody, welcome, bro. We are talking about the NFC East right now, and Woody is a huge Cowboys fan.
Yeah, he just in time.
Woody is one of those friends of mine that he got it halfway right. He's a Tar Heel fan, and I love him for that. But then he started talking about them Cowboys. And Woody, I'm going to talk about them Cowboys in just a second. I don't know if you're going to want to stick around for that. But I got something to say about them Cowboys. But of course I do, right? But anyway, so yeah, just to button up with the New York Football Giants, I think even if Saquon has a really good year, he laughing. Even if Saquon has a really good year, I don't know if that's going to translate into wins for the Giants. I think it always reminds me, and they talk about Dak Prescott, kind of going into that. Is Dak going to have a good year? Well, Dak can a lot of times throw for a whole lot of yards, and they still lose games. It's the same thing that reminds me a lot of times of when Michael Jordan would win scoring championships and the team wouldn't make it to the playoffs. Individually, you can do things, but is it enough of a force multiplier to turn your team to make up for some of the inadequacies that they have? Can your individual stats and achievements translate into wins? If they don't, does it really even matter? So Saquon may get loose on a couple of games and stuff like that, and they'll still lose because maybe their defense can't stop nobody.
I don't want to say Saquon is done, but he ain't the same dude. He's not.
No, not at all.
And you can see once you have a whole bunch of lower extremity injuries, you start to lose a step, especially if it's multiple. And he's had multiple, and he's had severe ones. So we saw it last year. He doesn't have the same explosiveness. I don't think he's ever going to get that back. It's not saying he's done, but I don't think he's a difference maker anymore. We'll see.
He not going to go down like Todd Gurley, is he?
Yes, I would hope not. But,
just disappeared. I mean, Todd Gurley's like on the side of a milk carton. You know what I'm saying? Like, have you seen this dude? You know, man. I mean, he went from the man to like who?
They go quick. They go quick.
Yeah,
they get their heydays and then they go very quick.
Get your money, because now he's going to be up for a contract and he's not going to get paid.
I was thinking about another running back that just disappeared quickly. Remember Arian Foster with the Texans?
Oh, yeah.
Absolute all-star. And very quickly, within a span of about 18 months, he was gone.
Yep. It was Arian Foster, Alfred Blue, Duke Johnson, all them dudes down there. Duke lasted longer than all of them.
Yeah.
I was just like,
running
wow.
backs' time are just short, man. It's not the same.
That's why, going back to fantasy football, that's why I'm like, you know what? I'm not putting – you remember when we were drafting before and everybody was fighting over Adrian Peterson? Yes. Whoever had the number one pick, you already knew who they were going to pick. It was going to be AP, right? AP. And after a while, we started realizing, wait a minute. Yeah, but then who else you got? It just didn't make no sense anymore. Everybody go after that for that running back, and I'm just like, oh, my God. We fight for that dude. But yeah, now running backs are almost a dime a dozen. As long as they're in a good scheme, a lot of them can get loose, Yeah. So if you don't have the first pick and somebody takes your favorite running back, don't worry. There's a handful of backs in the league this year that have an opportunity to go buck wild, especially certain games and certain matchups. It's going to be a lot of matchups. There's going to be a lot more defenses that are going to play a lot of zero coverages and stuff like that. They're going to put their safeties and their DBs more on islands. They're going to sit there and try to jam the box up more, force a lot of these quarterbacks to roll out and do things on the run and stuff like that. So you're going to have plenty of opportunities to see whose running backs are legit or not. Moving on along in the NFC East, we have our Washington Commanders. We have a named football team now.
It's going to take some getting used to. Woo.
Yeah, I know. I've been doing pretty good with the Commanders. But yeah, that's going to be different. Not only is the name different, but the person behind under center right now is going to be all of a sudden now journeyman Carson Wentz. He went from being MVP candidate just a few years ago to now being on his third team in 3 years. So had the mighty have fallen. So Carson Wentz, and it's kind of a shame because I didn't really think Taylor Heineke did anything to lose that job. I thought he actually performed pretty well in a lot of instances.
Outplayed Cam Newton.
Yeah, he did. And I mean, he really did. When I watched him on tape, you could really see where he had a better they will always be the Redskins to me. Well, okay. That's fine. I mean, ain't no wrong with him being that to you. But it's just more PC world now, Woody. But but hey, Woody, you ought to come on the show sometimes. It'd be hilarious to do some Cowboy segments with you. I'm just saying. Especially Rand's a Steelers fan, so I'm sure that you guys could count how many rings you have. Of course, I think he can count how many they have in the last 10 years. But anyway.
Shots fired.
No, I can't help it. But anyway, so the Commanders have Carson Wentz, Taylor Heineke, and then they have their uh, rookie quarterback out of North Carolina, Sam Howell, uh, who's got to come in and really figure out how to be more of a presence in the pocket. We all know that he ran a lot in North Carolina and did that kind of thing. He's going to be definitely a project that they can work on and bring him along. Once Carson gets hurt, let's see. I'll see what I can do. If I wasn't on the move right now, I'd hop on. Okay, fair enough. Um, but yeah, we have Sam Howell. Carson Wentz will probably get hurt at some point, meaning that Taylor will get his spot back, and then Sam will be the number 2 quarterback once they knock Wentz out. You got Antonio Gibson at running back, which is cool. J.D. McKissick is also going to be one of those running backs. You got Scary Terry McLaurin back in at wide receiver. Curtis Samuel, if he can stay healthy this year, is going to be your other receiver. If you can get Samuel to be what he was with Carolina and McLaurin on the other side, you got some really good things there as far as their offense is concerned. I don't know if it'll be enough to keep them in a lot of games. This is the kind of team that they do hand off a lot to Gibson and McKissick. And this is one of those teams that can they play from behind with Carson Wentz? That I don't know about, Rand. I know I saw a lot of times last year where Taylor Heineke did his yeoman's best to keep him in a lot of games with a bunch of shootouts and everything else. The game against Tampa in one, he was going toe-to-toe with Brady. So that's what I'm saying. I saw this kid do some things on the big stage where I'm like, people would have written him off. Like, okay, you're not going to even be close. And he was making some throws that I would only say only a handful of quarterbacks in the league could have made. So I was really impressed with Taylor Heineke last year, even though it didn't translate into a lot of wins.
Yeah, I liked Taylor when he was at Carolina. I didn't really think he was going to do anything, but he did come in and he was serviceable with the Panthers. And then he looked like he got a little better in Washington. I agree. That Tampa game was impressive. I think they were looking for a little bit more size at the quarterback position and a little bit more consistency. You got Wentz coming in. Say what you will about Wentz, but last year he was decent for the Colts outside of week 17.
Yeah,
But,
that's fair. I think a lot of people sat there and looked past everything that he did during the season and looked at his last game, which wasn't his best moment.
not at all.
And then I think too that sometimes people dismissed what he did because he had such a great running back.
Yeah, that
but
too.
he fed off of that. And hold on, Woody says, I can't believe CJ isn't on your show. He would have repped the boys. Okay, Woody. So I know CJ isn't watching right now, so I'm gonna be honest with you. CJ ain't a real Cowboys fan. I've learned this. CJ is a homer. He likes the Cowboys, but he don't know nothing about the Cowboys. When I have a conversation with the Cowboys, he just sounds like all these other delusional Cowboy fans that repeat, we're going back to the Super Bowl kind of thing. When I ask why, he has no idea. When I talk about the players on the team, I can name more Cowboys on the Cowboys team than he can. Now, I'm not a Cowboys fan. How can I name more Cowboys on the – yes. He said, what? I can name more Cowboys on the Cowboys team than CJ can. Now, if you was a real Cowboys fan, how was that possible? Just tell me that part. If I said I'm a Carolina Panthers fan and I can only tell you I was about to say Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, and Christian McCaffrey, but I couldn't go down the line at least 10, 12, 13 deep, would you really consider me a Carolina Panthers fan? Now, Woody, I bet you could tell me the last 3, 4, 5 quarterbacks. You could tell me cornerbacks. You could, if I said a number, you could tell me at least 2 or 3 Cowboys that have worn that number, right? So that's what I'm saying. When I say stuff like that, when I say 88, you don't just think Michael Irvin. There's like 3 other dudes that you could tell me that wore that number.
Pearson, X Factor.
Exactly. So when I sit there and when somebody tells me they're a fan of a team, I'm kind of like, okay, are you more like an observing fan or are you a fan? Like if I ask Randall to start talking about the Iron Curtain of the Steelers and all those legendary teams, he could go bop, 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 because this is the team that, I mean, he, cried for all that stuff for us. So he knows, you know, even Chicago Bear fans, they're like that too. I mean, all fans are like that, the real fans, not just these passerbys. Like, hey, did you even see who won the game? Nope.
Man, I love it. I had a I had a Panthers fan challenge me. He came up to me and told me that I could not be a fan of the Carolina Panthers if I was a fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So
That's
what I
crazy.
did is I turned it around on him. I told
Exactly.
him everything about the Panthers that he did not know,
Didn't even
including
know.
the
Thank you.
history of the Panthers, uh, who were they first drafted
Right.
back when they broke into
And
the
and and and
league,
and, and, and
and the
that's
current
ridiculous,
weapons on the team right now to this day, and left them
friend.
speechless.
Unless you've been born in the last 25 years, of course, you had a team before the Panthers.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's just, I mean, just like all these Cowboy fans, most of these DC Pharrells have been Cowboy fans since they were little kids, and most of them are in their 30s and 40s. The Panthers have only been around for about 27, 28 years. So, of course, if you were a kid growing up and you had a team, of course, you have a primary team. And maybe because you live in the Charlotte market or something like that, you may be also a Panthers fan. And the Pittsburgh Steelers are in the AFC. The Carolina Panthers are in the NFC. Except
Exactly.
for every 4 years where you play each other, you're only going to see each other if you make it to the NFC Championship game. I mean, to
The
the Super
Super
Bowl.
Bowl. Right.
Yeah. So yeah, and then Woody did mention Drew Pearson, Michael Irvin, Des Bryant, and now CeeDee Lamb, 88s. Exactly.
There you go.
Woody, I could ask CJ the same question. Name 4 receivers that have worn 88. I bet you he couldn't even tell me that. I ain't trying to dump on my man. I'm just saying to me, that's the difference between being a fan and this is who I like. Like if you want to talk about Tar Heels, we can go Tar Heels all day long. We can talk about
There
all
you
the
go.
Tar Heel teams. We're Tar Heel fans. If you're a Duke fan, you can go straight into the Dukies. But he said that's a shame. It is a shame because especially when I'm really thinking that I'm talking to somebody that's really representing that team and know what the hell they talking about, and I realize that they lost when I'm talking. I'm like, you don't even know what the hell I'm talking about, do you? you
Makes
just
for a
basically
real short conversation.
you just basically the Mills baby. You just basically root for them to win, but you're not really that invested in them like that. Like it don't piss you off. All them days where y'all used to talk about getting rid of Jason Garrett and everything. He wasn't that deep into it, and all that kind of stuff. So I'll get back to the Cowboys. Well, we'll go to them in just a second because with Washington, I don't really see them ready yet. It still, to me, is going to depend on the quarterback play. You see, Chase Young is going to be again on PUP for the first 4 games of the season. That's going to affect their defense from a chemistry standpoint because he's been out a lot, and he really looked like he could really give them some good linebacker action and everything like that. But your best ability is always going to be your availability. So if you can't be out there, doesn't matter how dynamic of a player you are, Christian McCaffrey. I'm sorry, I meant Chase Young. It's not going to really translate and help your team.
Ah man, they that Young injury is a big one. It really is because when he was out there on one end, you would have Sweat on the other side there,
Yep.
and people would have to worry about both sides of the line. Well, now with Young out for it looks like the first 4 games, maybe
Mm-hmm.
longer than that. Now they could just double team Sweat, and he's not that dynamic where you got to worry about him like affecting the game as in a Chase Young does. So
Right.
that's a killer for that whole defense. It really is.
That's true. So yeah, I think the Commanders are probably going to be a hair better than the Giants, but again, with Philly getting better and Dallas, you know, being who they are, I tend to think that Washington is going to be third at best. Which brings us to the Birds, the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, this team has improved a lot. 21 Savage and J. Cole said, how many shots you got? A lot. They got a lot. Everybody keeps talking about the biggest question mark is going to be the quarterback. And Jalen Hurts, is he going to be able to take the next step up? People forget that once their coach figured out that we needed to lean more heavily into this team's strengths, which is running the ball, is when they finally took off. I could not understand why Miles Sanders was not getting fed earlier last year. And I kept scratching my head. We would come on this show and go, why aren't they giving this guy the ball?
You ain't the only one.
And I'm just like, it was so obvious, Rand. You would look at his yards per carry and go, give him the ball.
5 yards a carry.
I'm like, Rand, it wasn't like, I'm like, wait a minute. This coach is making how much money? And we were all saying the same thing. Then when he finally started doing it, they started winning games. Oh, gee, look at that. So it just was killing me that they were, look, if you want to see how Jalen Hurts is going to be, some offenses, they pass to set up the run. This team is going to have to run to set up the pass. They're going to have to run and do a lot of running schemes to put their receivers in really good positions. You got some good receivers. Now you brought in A.J. Brown. You got Dallas Goedert at tight end. Devontae Smith in at wide receiver. You got some pieces to play with now. So you can do a lot of schemes, but still play to Jalen's strength. Can he make throws? Yes. While getting him consistent, having a tight end like Dallas that can catch the ball, having Miles Sanders that can catch the ball out of the backfield, having Boston Scott back there that can catch balls out of the backfield. Now you've got something to work with. This is a team that if they sit there and don't get behind often, because a lot of times I did see where they were trying to play from behind and they were trying to run themselves back into the game. That's a lot harder to do because then the clock becomes your enemy. But now he'll be able to push the ball down the field, hopefully, with A.J. Brown complementing Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, and some of those other guys out there. So I actually think the Eagles are going to be a team to really watch in the NFC East.
I have to agree with you. When I did my my preseason rankings in the water cooler, this was weeks ago. I had it lined up with Washington ahead of Philadelphia, actually. But I had to go take a second look, man, especially with this sweat injury, with him going to be gone. I love what the Eagles have done in the trenches. They drafted Jordan Davis out of Georgia, and you fit him right in there in rotation with Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave. I mean, that defense is going to be stout too. So you can't sleep on them on the defensive side.
Right.
I also like what they did. They went out and they got our guy from Carolina, Hassan Reddick,
yes,
to go play the linebacker spot.
Huge.
So that defense should be really, really good. They got Darius Slay on one side as far as one of the cornerbacks. So I like what they've done defensively. Like we said last year, I think they figured out that they need to give Miles Sanders the ball a lot more than what they were. So now, I have to put the Eagles ahead of the Commanders. I agree with you. That they just are very, very talented, especially going out and getting A.J. Brown to help out Devontae Smith on the other side. So Philly fans, I slept on you, but I apologize. I'm back in the game now.
Bro.
I got y'all ahead of Washington and New York.
I got them, and I know this is going to sound crazy. I got them winning the NFC East.
Hey, that's a big jump right there, but I can't sleep on you because you called him.
Fly, Eagles, fly. And I know my Dallas fans are going to come for me. Brian, why do you say that? We the Cowboys, we them boys, all that stuff. Yeah, and it's still been 27 years. So, and counting. So listen, Cowboy fans, do I say that because I don't really care for the Cowboys? No. But does it make me feel good to say it? Absolutely. I just happen to believe it's true. And Woody even says the Eagles are going to be hard to beat, especially at home. What I really think is going to happen, Woody, is I think you'll split. They'll win at home, you'll win at home. So a lot more of it is going to come down to you're not sweeping the conference this year. The Eagles are just going to be too good. It's really going to come down to your other divisional wins. Can you sweep the Giants? If you're Cowboys, yes. Can you sweep the Reds? I mean, I did it. Can you sweep the Commanders? I don't know. I kind of see the same thing. It could be potentially a split. Cowboys don't travel well sometimes when it comes to their offense. I know, right? And if you can't sweep the Commanders and the Giants, it's going to be hard for you to win that division. You got to do that because I don't see any way, chance in hell of you sweeping the Eagles. Now, the Eagles might fall flat and prove me wrong, but I just don't see the Cowboys really doing that to the Eagles like that. I see the Eagles being able to hold their own, especially at home. And if you're not careful, depending on where they are in the schedule, they could get you at home. So, and I know that's a lot to say, but as I transition into the Dallas Cowboys, who won the NFC East last year, I know Jerry always looks for the hometown discounts and stuff like that. And a couple of the players said, no, thank you. Then you got rid of Amari Cooper. And people are talking about CeeDee Lamb. And CeeDee Lamb is ready to step up. And CeeDee Lamb had more yards than Amari Cooper. Brandon, I've never understood how people sit there and don't understand that the reason that CeeDee Lamb
because they don't know the game. Because they don't know the game.
Right. Number one, he missed 2 games because of COVID.
Yeah.
But number 2, if he's your number 1 receiver, that means he has the number 1 corner on him.
Right.
That means your second and third receivers don't have the main corners on them. So if they're focusing on taking out your number 1, somebody else is going to eat. Especially if you got a quarterback like Dak that can throw the ball around, whether it's the Dalton Schultz, whether it was the Cedric Wilson, whether it was the CeeDee Lamb, whether it was to Gallup. Those guys are going to benefit off the fact that Amari Cooper commands so much attention. That's just facts. So then saying, well, Amari isn't even a number 1 receiver because he didn't have number 1 yards. Wait, what?
He was your most talented wide receiver. He was the one that commanded all of the attention once you reached the goal line. That's why he had so many touchdowns.
Yeah.
I know CeeDee Lamb is the number 1 this year, but we've talked about this before. It's a huge difference when you are the number 2 guy and then you move to the number 1 dude. Now you have all the eyes on you. So with all these eyes on CeeDee Lamb, now who's going to step up and be that number 2? Is Michael Gallup ready for that? He's on the puck list right now, I believe. I don't even know if he's
exactly. Yeah. The season. Well, I think Gallup is starting to practice on the sideline now that they said. So still don't think he's going to be ready for game 1. What he said, and he's absolutely right. I can't believe I said this. Cooper helped Lamb out a lot.
Hell
absolutely he did. And he said we should have kept Cooper. Well, you know what? I'm going to be honest with you, Woody. You're absolutely right. Because what are wide receivers going for now? $28 million. You were paying Amari Cooper $20 million. Yeah, you should have kept him at least 1 more year.
They should have never signed Ezekiel Elliott to that contract. Let him walk.
That was it right there.
That was it.
Because now people are calling more for Pollard than they are for Zeke. Yeah. But again, it's the same thing. Yep. It's easier to be the number 2 guy, and everybody like it's like that cool uncle everybody got. Everybody like that cool uncle, except for that uncle's kids. They don't see what y'all see, but everybody else love that cool uncle. He come around, he just the life of the party. Everybody love that cool uncle. That's Tony Pollard right now. Uh-huh. Now if he becomes the man, can he? And it's not saying that he can't, but can he? Well, it's not been proven yet. It's the same thing with CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee has shown you flashes and everything else, but he also drops a lot of passes. He kind of reminds me of DJ Moore sometimes. DJ Moore will make the spectacular catch and drop the routine catch. And I'm just like, dude, that was right in your hands. But you'll go up over somebody, catch it with one hand, pull it down, and you got the ball. And I'm like, that was acrobatic, and you'll catch the high difficult passes, but some of the more routine ones will hit your hands because you're so ready to turn up field that you didn't secure the ball. Woody said that they didn't put Gallup on the pup. He'll be back in 4 weeks. Okay. So, yeah, he's not on the pup, but he's coming back from that injury. And a lot of times with injuries like that, it does take a couple of weeks. Even though you're out there, you still got to, you got to trust, especially with legs. Receivers have to use their legs and count on their legs, just like running backs. And you got to feel confident and get out of your head that it's going to give on you or anything like that. Or can I take a hit, tackles, all those kind of things and bounce right back up and I'm okay. There's a lot more to it than just the actual injury healing. It's your mind really healing from it as well. Because you remember when you got hurt, what it felt like when you got hit, being carted off or being on those crutches or the walking boot, going through the rehab and all of that other stuff. So all those things play into your head, and you got to get out of your head when you have injuries like that. So it'll be interesting. But I don't see where Dallas over the all season got significantly better as an offense.
Not as an offense. No, they definitely took a step back, and I mentioned that in the cooler too when I did my little write-up. They took a step back with the weapons on wide receiver, and that's going to really be the main thing that's going to hurt them, I think, anyway.
I think it's putting too much pressure on CeeDee Lamb to
definitely
try to do too much too early, too soon. Dak has always been good for throwing 400-yard games, and they still lose. They still come up short. A lot of times because they're down 3 touchdowns, and he's having to pass on every down just to give them a chance to come back. It's like my man Shannon Sharp would always call them empty calories. And that's the best way to look at it is that, hey, you're just slinging the ball around. They're starting to play more prevent defense at that point because they're just trying to protect the lead and keep you in front of them. They just don't want you to throw over them and start getting some easy, quick touchdowns. So they're willing to give you that 10 yards across the middle. And then they're going to fall on you real quick because they know that the clock will start to become your enemy. They know that once they get a big lead on you, that they've taken away half of your offense because now your running back, Zeke, that would have been good for running, is basically ineffective. It reminds me of when the Minnesota Vikings used to have Adrian Peterson, and they would get behind. And then they would start running a bunch of spread offense, and AP wouldn't even be out there anymore because his game was totally on not catching, but getting the ball handed off to him. But when you're down 3 touchdowns, you can't just run the rock for 3 yards, 4 yards, 7-yard gains and stuff like that. You need chunk plays. And he wasn't going to get you chunk plays. If you tackle him in the middle of the field, the clock is still running. At least with the receivers, you get it to them on a slant, they get out of bounds, the clock stops. All those type of situational football things that come into play. Same thing with Ezekiel. You start to get down a lot, Zach is going to start slinging the ball over the field, but you're going to take away supposedly one of your best weapons. The other thing that they talked about, Rand, is installing Tony Pollard more into the passing offense. When he was in college, he actually did more at receiver than he did at running back. So they're actually talking about bringing him in and designing a lot more plays for him where maybe he does start in the backfield, cuts out to a slot, and then runs as a receiver.
They're going to have to do that because right now I believe he is the better weapon than Ezekiel. And I don't care if Ezekiel comes in 15, 20 pounds lighter, talking about he's in the best shape of his life if he wants. That's not going to help, man. Looks like he's taking too many tackles. He doesn't have the same explosiveness either. So all that cereal eating Zeke, those days are gone, man.
Yeah. We not feeding you no more, Zeke. And I think what happens a lot of times, Rand, is people sit there and say, okay, out of the 2 backs, we're paying him the most, so we got to make him the featured back.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
Money
I think,
definitely has something to do.
a lot of times when you hold on to that too long, because you say, well, we paid this guy all this money. Yeah, but is this the best thing for our football team? You got to make decisions based on what's best for your team. If Zeke splitting the carries makes more sense, or Pollard being more featured at times than Zeke, then you got to go that way. Zeke gets our hopes up every year only to let us down. And you're right with that, Woody, because if you look every single year, his yards per carry is going down. His
Yep.
yards per game is going down.
Yes.
Right along with Tyron Smith. Yeah, he can't stay healthy. Again, I go back to what I said earlier. Your best ability is your availability. You keep getting all these nagging industries. It's just like what's your other guy that was always your linebacker in the middle? What was it? Sean Lee?
Yeah.
Great linebacker when he was out there, but he could never stay healthy. See, this is what I'm talking about, Woody. Ask CJ who Sean Lee is. I'll wait. He wouldn't be able to tell you. He wouldn't be able to tell you. He wouldn't know who Van Der Esch is. Wouldn't be able to tell you. I'm
Probably
not even looking at my screen and I can tell you who's on their roster.
Probably couldn't even spell Sean
He
correctly.
wouldn't even know that Ryan Switzer played for the Cowboys. I'm telling you, wouldn't know. Ryan who? Anyway, so it's going to be really hard to see the Cowboys pulling out of this division. I'm not going to say for certain that the Eagles are going to do it, but it's going to be close. I look at 1 and 1A on this, honestly, from an honest standpoint. It's not that I'm just rooting against the Cowboys, which I am. But I don't see where they did enough. If you're not gaining, you're losing. Because every year you can't take what you did last year and bring it into this year. Every year has this new thing. But what we can see is are you building? Have you gotten better? Will your coach be able to call timeouts effectively and manage the game? You know, a lot of times Mike McCarthy seemed like Jason Garrett came back out there and put on a fat suit and was Mike McCarthy. If that's probably put on a fat suit. Yeah. He put on a fat suit. And I couldn't tell the difference between Jason Garrett and Mike McCarthy a lot of times. You know, Dan Quinn was your best coach out there all of the time, period. And I think it's going to be a lot harder for that defense to create as many turnovers as they did last year. Not to say that they can't, but Trayvon Diggs, you know, he got the most interceptions, but he also gave up the most yards to receivers. So, you know, that feast or famine mode where, hey, yeah, I'm going to get a bunch of receiving yards because I'm going to take a lot of chances, but he also got burnt a lot by doing that too.
And he's continued to be burnt in camp too, just in case you wanted to know that.
So he takes a lot of chances. Now, the one thing that y'all got going is that man, that beautiful man, Micah Parsons, but you only got one of him. And you got to figure out, are you going to have him with his hands in the ground or is he going to come off the edge? What are you going to have him do? A lot more of. Micah he's so talented. He's like Chung for the Panthers. Is that his name? Am I thinking about the right guy?
Chubb.
No,
Chubb. On the defensive side.
Yeah. They just lined him up at safety, linebacker.
Yeah. Number 21. I'm freezing with his name.
Isn't it Chung? Isn't his name? No. What's his name? It'll come to me.
Yeah.
What do you might know? It's all who's the healthiest at the end of the year. Absolutely, and that's what I'm saying too. It's going to come down to a lot of that, but it's going to be relatively close. If Jalen Hurts doesn't take wins out of the hands of the Philadelphia Eagles, it's going to be hard. Dak's game is going to have to evolve to a point, in my opinion, that he can't be Michael Jordan, who scores 60 points a game and the Bulls still lose. It's going to have to be he scored 60 points, but he also had 13 assists, 15 rebounds. He had this many steals. It's going to have to be more of a well-rounded game. What do I mean that with Dak? It's not how many yards you have. When did you get those yards? Did you get it all in the fourth quarter? Did you get it through the first and second quarter? Because that's going to matter. You can still have those stats, but are you padding those stats when the game is out of reach and it doesn't matter? Or is it throughout the course of the game when it's still a tug of war to see who's going to come out on top. Keep an eye on Sam Wilson. He replaced Gregory. He's 10 pounds heavier and a tenth of a second faster. Okay. So Sam Wilson, where is he on the depth chart? Is he up there now?
He's going to be a defensive end. He was drafted second round. Sam Williams. That's it.
Oh, Williams. Okay. I see him now. Yeah. So he's behind D-Law right now on the depth chart, but yeah, maybe he'll move up on that, or at least he'll be in that rotation. So that'll be good too. DeMarcus Lawrence is still on that defense, so I don't want to take that away. But you got Micah Parsons in. They have him listed as a linebacker, but they may even play him at some end or something. He's just that versatile because he can drop back in coverage. My bad, guy's last name wrong. It's all good. He can drop back in coverage, or he can rush the passer. Is he more effective rushing the passer? Yeah, because he can get to him. So it's going to really depend on what you're trying to do. If you can get home with 4, then okay, drop him back in coverage. If you can't get home with 4 and you need him to come off of an end or straight up the middle or something like that, then you'll have to use him for that. So you'll be able to use him in different things. But sometimes, Rand, I think sometimes you just probably need to pick and choose where you want him to line up. Now, they can move him all over the field, and I get that. And it keeps Jeremy Chin, Panthers. Chin, not Chung. Jeremy Chin. He's the one that they move all over the place, where he's in the linebacker meetings, the safety meetings, the end meetings. He's everywhere because they line him up in different places. So I think he's more effective rushing. I don't want him covering so much. Yeah, I get that too. But he can if he has to. He's really that good. The dude is fast too. So when you're so versatile, it's hard for him to define your position a lot of times because you can play about 3 or 4 different positions. It's like the center that can be a tackle, a lot of times. So that will help. So we'll see how that goes with the Dallas Cowboys. I just don't really see where they netted a lot of gains as a team totally. It's going to come down to a lot of X factors on this team for them to really be successful. And then looking at them being successful out, not just in their conference, but their schedule is not that easy. They open up at Tampa Bay. Then they got to go to and that's on the road. Then they got to go to Cincinnati. Then they got to go to New York. Okay. Then they got to go to Washington. So at the end of 4 games, they could be 2-2. But then they got to go to the Rams. Then they got to go to Philadelphia. I'm sorry, their first 2 games are at home. Then they got to go to New York. Then they come home against the Commanders. Then they got to go all the way over to LA, and then they got to go to Philly. So after 6 games, they could be 2-4.
Yeah, it's all going to depend on.
That's hard. That's hard for your psyche. I mean, now you got Detroit, Chicago in there, and I ain't going to just throw Detroit and say, hey, that's an easy win. That could be competitive, but then they got Green Bay, Minnesota. Of course, they get the Giants again. They got Indianapolis. That's going to be hard. Houston ain't going to lay down for them. Jacksonville, I hope, is a little bit better. They got Philly again, Tennessee, and then Washington. I don't know who going to try to tackle that big man, Derrick Henry. So they don't have the easiest schedule. When I look at the Eagles, to me, it looks like the Eagles may have a better schedule than they do. So I'm just saying we'll see how it goes with the Cowboys. Moving on along, we're going to take a look at the AFC East. And let's start down in the city of Miami, where Tua Tagovailoa is still the quarterback after all the controversy. And who is his backup? This dude get more contracts than anybody I know and ain't played a damn worth a damn. Teddy Bridgewater. Here we go, Teddy. I got you again. But Teddy Bridgewater is Tua, so Tua will be the quarterback all year long unless he gets hurt. And then It's funny that the biggest offseason move they did, of course, was getting the cheetah, Tyreek Hill. And I've never heard Tyreek talk so much until he went to Miami. I didn't even know he could talk.
Son,
When he was in Kansas, now the stuff he's talking about is just crazy. It's lunacy.
right.
When talking about Tua has a better arm than Patrick Mahomes.
Like, come on, man, really?
Bro, that's gonna last through the first 5 games, and when you wondering when am I ever gonna catch a ball, But he says, "Oh yeah, he's got a great deep pass," and he's just talking up to it. Actually, I think you're putting more pressure on Tua by talking about how good he is.
Absolutely putting more pressure on him.
Because we're Tyreek. We all gonna be looking for what you obviously have been seeing in camp that we have not seen in 2 years. So we're gonna really be looking for it. Now he does have a pretty good rate as far as passes over 20 yards and stuff like that. But it hasn't translated to a whole lot. But they've got Chase Edmonds as a running back. They've also gotten Raheem Mostert. If you remember, just a couple of years removed from his San Francisco days, he was actually pretty good as a three-headed monster in San Francisco when they had him.
Pickup.
Yeah, that was a really good pickup.
Good pickup because they don't have any running backs in Miami.
Right. They do have Sony Michel that's going to be on third on the depth chart, and then they have Miles Gaskin, who is kind of fallen off a good bit, but they've got at least a nicer rotation now with those 4 guys. Like I said, they've got Tyreek on one side, but now what makes it even more dynamic is you got Tyreek on one side and Jalen Waddle on the other. That was one of the brightest spots that I saw with the Dolphins last year. Was Waddle it was like another Jamar Chase kind of guy. He just go get balls. He make plays. I'm starting to notice a lot of these college receivers are coming straight into the NFL and performing from jump. They're not having to get acclimated at all. They may hit that rookie wall at some point, but they're coming in making plays. These guys are beasts. And Jalen Waddle is no different with that. And they also picked up somebody that played himself into a contract with Cedric Wilson Jr. from those aforementioned Dallas Cowboys. So he got signed. Mike Gesicki got re-signed as the tight end. So I like their offense. Again, this is going to kind of be the same issue that you have with the Eagles. It's really going to come back to the quarterback play. But I believe if they're smart, they're going to use the run to set up the pass.
It is exactly the same issue with the Philadelphia Eagles. The talent is there for both teams. So it all falls on the shoulders of the quarterbacks. If you get good play out of the quarterback, hey, both teams could do very well. But if you get disastrous play and a bunch of turnovers, then you're going to be looking at a very talented team that's going to underachieve. So
exactly.
Jalen Hurts, Tua, it's time to make some big steps forward this year.
And, Rand, the biggest thing that I need to see from both of these young quarterbacks, same thing I needed to see from our Panthers last year, you have a decent defense. You have a really good defense. But 3 and outs, changing of possessions through turnovers will take any great or good defense and make them mediocre at best.
Man, absolutely.
Because if you don't give them time to take a breather, they just got off the field, they just got the ball back to you, and you go 2 or 3 plays, and they got to get right back on the field, you're going to gas them. It doesn't matter how good they are. You're going to gas them.
The Chicago Bears actually had a Super Bowl window with the defense that they had for about 3 years. But with Trubisky back there, they could never generate any type of offense. So they wasted that team. They really did. They wasted the talent on that team because that defense is now dispersed in their their other teams throughout the league. So Super Bowl window is very, very shallow. You got to hit it and strike it when it's open.
And to your point with that, the AFC East for the longest, there was a lock at the top for 20 years.
Yeah.
With the New England Patriots. You most certainly knew that the best you could hope for was second.
Yep.
Then it became open. And now I'm starting to wonder with the Buffalo Bills, are we going back to the Bills of the 90s where you have a good team, you might make it to the Super Bowl, but then are you going to lose 3 in a row? And you waste that opportunity, and then that window closes. And then as the Bills saw, it doesn't open up for over 20 years. Whereas the Cowboys can tell you too, it doesn't open up for over 20 years. So a lot of times you're wasting those opportunities by doing that. So you're right, Tua. This is a season where the Patriots may not be that good. The Jets will be a better team, but they still may not be that good. You have the potential to be the second team coming out of the AFC East.
You sure do. The opportunity is right here. And
It's right there. But if you wait too long, Belichick gonna figure it out. Robert Saleh may figure it out, and you're gonna be where you normally are, and that's in the cellar, looking up at everybody, going, "Man, what could have been?" We still under Dan Marino's shadow, Even though he didn't win it either, he was probably the greatest Dolphin that you've had, and God knows when.
Yeah.
So
there is a ton of pressure on Tua this year. There are no excuses. You got two of the most dynamic, fastest wide receivers who you could hit for a 15-yard screen and they could go house.
All the way.
There is no excuses this year. You got a good tight end in Gesicki, and you got two decent running backs that you picked up to help you in the run game. Yeah. All of the excuses are out the window for Tua. Absolutely. You got to show it. You got to show it and prove it this year.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's going to be the Dolphins there. And let's talk about those Jets, because it won't take that long. The New York Football Jets return second year now quarterback Zach Wilson, who got dinged up just a week or two ago, but should be good to go. But if not, we got the ageless wonder, Joe Flacco, backing him up. Joe did a good job last year when he had to come in when Zach went out with injury before. And they also had another guy, Mike White.
Mike who?
Mike White came in and played his. I'm like, who is this cat?
Who?
But you know what? When you're the third guy, there's no film on you. The practice squad doesn't run against your first team and simulate you. So they didn't really know what to do with Mike White. But Mike White came in and played pretty decent. I must say, he kind of reminded me of, in some ways, of Tyler Huntley, if that's Lamar Jackson's backup, I believe, in Baltimore. When Lamar got hurt, he came in and did a serviceable job. I'm like, well, he ain't at least turning the ball over, and he can run. He's just not as dynamic as Lamar, but he ain't he ain't no scrub. But Mike White did well. Joe Flacco still had a little bit in him. He was doing some things in that offense too. But this is another team that's predicated on the run to set up the pass, because you have Elijah Moore. I'm sorry. You have Breece Hall as your running back, but you also have second-year player Michael Carter out of Kakalaki.
North Carolina.
And then you've got Tevin Coleman behind him. So you've got some running backs that can really do some things too. I think it's going to be a lot of that. It's going to be a lot of getting the ball out of Zach Wilson's hands quickly. He does like to throw. He does have an arm on him. He's a really thin kid. He didn't add on a lot of muscle. He's going to have to do that eventually, or at least build up his upper body somewhat, because every time I see him get hit, I just don't think he's going to get back up. He already looked like he's 13 years old out there. I mean, you look at him in the face, he looks so young. But his body is just not there yet. But his arm, he's got an arm on him, and I think he'll do okay. I mean, you just don't have the speedy receivers. You got Elijah Moore, you got Corey Davis, Garrett Wilson. I mean, okay. None of them scare me when I say their names. The tight end, CJ Uzama, he's out there. You may be checking down to your tight end a lot in that kind of an offense, and that's fine. But it's not going to be enough that when you're playing from behind, it's going to catch you back up in the game. This is going to be a team that, for them to have any success, they're going to have to be low-scoring games.
The Jets are not there. Cupboards are bare in New York, same as the Giants. And then a name that you didn't mention, Nakai Becton, their left tackle, that they invested all this in. He didn't play at all last year, and he won't play again this year because he got
Yep.
another serious knee injury. So that's not going to help Zach
Yeah,
Wilson at
it's
all.
over before it started.
Yeah, so he's got no tackles out there. They got Dwayne Brown from the Seahawks trying to do the job, but I mean, hell, he's 57. You got Johnson from not Johnson, yeah, Jermaine Johnson. He's a defensive end, and you got Sauce Gardner, who's supposed to be the
The
man
rook.
at cornerback, but we'll see how that goes. Matched up in the AFC, where you got a
Exactly.
lot of good wide receivers that's ready to feast on you, Sauce. So, New York, this is not the year for you.
Yeah, and that's what they're going to do. They're going to try him. They're going to
They
throw
coming
his
straight
way.
at the dude. He
They're
got a
going to come
big
right
mouth.
at him.
He has not helped him himself. He's talked a bunch of junk as a rookie, so they're coming straight at
They're
him.
coming for you, Sauce. That is true. And you're on one of the worst teams in the NFL at that. So that's not going to be a lot. Thank you, Scott Littleson. Just sent me a nice little message. Loving the show. Glad to see you tuning in from Texas. So we talked about the New York Jets, and that's probably 3 minutes more than we should have. So moving on along, let's talk about them New England Patriots. This is going to be interesting. Bill Belichick is so funny because it seems like he gets so annoyed when people ask him just regular routine questions like, hey, you going to have an offensive coordinator or no? And he's like acting like, why would you even ask me that? And it's like, well, because every other team has an offensive coordinator. So what's up with that? And then get mad when they ask you something because now every time what you're doing is you're setting yourself up. Because if Mac Jones starts laying duds, whose feet are you going to put it at? Or is it going to be, hey, Bill, is there an issue with communication between Matt Patricia and Joe Judge as to who's calling the plays, who's the last person that Mac Jones is hearing before he goes into the huddle with the players? Whose voice is it? That matters. The chemistry between offensive coordinator and quarterback is almost kind of being devalued by Bill Belichick right now in a lot of ways. And you got a second-year quarterback that was serviceable during his first year, but he wasn't extraordinary because you didn't let him be. He didn't have anybody to throw to hardly. So you tried to keep him in a lane, and I get that. But for him to grow, he needs a coordinator to grow with. I get Josh McDaniels is gone. Get over it. He moved on again. We'll see when he comes back. But for right now, you've got Matt Patricia, who was a defensive guy, I believe. You got Joe Judge, who should have never went to New York. So who's your play caller, man? Let us know. I know you watch the show. Let us know. Just between us.
New England's definitely taking a step back, in my opinion. I mean, they went out and got Devontae Parker from Miami. That's probably going to be their number one wide receiver. But, I mean, he's got injury concerns and always has had.
Big time.
They got Kendrick Bourne.
Jacoby Myers is your other receiver.
Yep, and then they got Jacoby Myers. I mean, none of those names are going to light the world.
Right, and then they got rid of Nikhil in the offseason.
Yeah,
because he wasn't doing anything.
Yeah, he underperformed his whole career. So, a lot is on the shoulders of Mac Jones. You're probably going to see a lot of short passes and a lot of handoffs and a lot of usage of Damian Harris. But outside of that, on the offense, I mean, you're looking at, Cam Newton might as well still be there.
Well, I'm looking for them to use a lot more of their 21 package. I finally got to bring in 21. 21 is going to be your tight ends. 2 tight end sets. Because you've got Jonnu Smith and you got Hunter Henry. Didn't do a whole lot last year.
That didn't work last year, not at all.
But they didn't. But he didn't really run it that way, and they just didn't give it a chance. You had them out there, but you didn't always have them out there together. But if you want to, and I hate to bring up Aaron Hernandez, but when the Patriots were really good with 2 tight ends, you had Aaron Hernandez and you had Gronk, and both of them were huge bodies coming across the middle, doing a lot of cross routes and stuff like that. A lot of times, this is a team that if Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith are still what they once were, which they're not, but
They
if
are
they
not.
are close to that, they could actually end up being your second and third receivers almost by default. I don't look for Jacoby Myers to be more than what he already is, but I look for him to lean heavily on his tight ends. And the reason is because New England's offense has always been predicated about getting the ball out quick. That's what made Tom Brady so good is that he'd take a 3-yard pass and it turned into a 15-yard game. That's what you're going to have to end up with your tight ends, getting behind that secondary, getting behind that second level coverage in the middle of the field. That's where defensive players hate to guard the most because you don't have the benefit of a sideline being almost a second defender for you. When a receiver catches the ball and they run a slant or they're doing some kind of a post, then the sideline becomes almost a de facto defender, and it lessens the amount of grass that a defender has to guard in front of you. When they get it in the middle of the field, that leaves a lot open, especially if they're pressing more than 4. If they're running a 3-4. So that puts a lot more pressure on the front 3, and then you've got a back 4 to give you more of a perimeter. But if they can, but if they can play defenses that are playing 4-3s and they get behind that with those tight ends, then if they use Jonnu and Hunter properly, they could really get off like that. Is it enough for them to amass a lot of wins? I don't think so. I don't think they're going to win more than 8-9 games this year on the high end.
Yeah, I got way more faith in Hunter Henry than I do in Jonnu Smith. I mean, he just looks done. They brought him over from Tennessee because he had a big year in Tennessee, but comes over to New England and he catches 28 passes, only got 1 touchdown. So, yeah, the New England just don't scare me this year.
Not at all.
Do a lot. They're going to have to do a lot.
They are. Which brings us to the Buffalo Bills. So I'm going to say flat out the Buffalo Bills, I have them winning the AFC East. I have Miami coming in at 2. I have New England coming in at 3. And I have the Jets coming in at 4.
I have them lined up exactly how you have them lined up. Now, I do have a difference in the NFC East. I got the Cowboys still coming in first over Philadelphia. And I'm just giving the nod to Dak over Jalen until Jalen shows me something. But I will admit that one's going to be tight as well.
Yep. No, I agree. And you know what? I'm picking the Eagles, but I won't be surprised if the Cowboys win it. It's not. That's why I said it's going to kind of be 1A, 1B to me, because it's really going to me, it's going to depend not so much on the division. I think they're both going to do well within the NFC East. It's going to really depend on how they do out of conference, or not out of conference, out of division. The Cowboys didn't do themselves any favors front loading their schedule, which I know they don't make their own schedule, but front loading their schedule with a lot of heavy hitters in the first half of the season. Dallas is a team that normally, when they do better during the season, is when they win early, and then everybody ready for them to win the Super Bowl in September. Remember how last year they won the first couple of games because they played a lot of the NFC East teams, and they just celebrating and hugging each other in September
every year.
It's September. What's wrong with you people?
I mean, seriously, you go on Facebook and you see people lighting cigars in September.
Bro, I'm like,
straight up.
September. I mean, I appreciate the enthusiasm when he says, "We know why you're picking the Eagles, Brian." Yeah, well, Woody, actually, no. I grew up an Eagles fan, actually, before the Panthers came to Carolina. Quick story. I grew up an Eagles fan because down here, everything was Redskins, and I said that purposely, or Cowboys. And they kept going back and forth with each other, and it made me hate them both, to the point that I picked one of their division rivals, which was the Eagles. And I was an Eagles fan ever since. And I still am loosely, but I'm more of a Carolina Panthers fan because the Panthers came when I was still relatively young. So I was able to kind of detach from the Eagles more and become more of a home-based fan, because I didn't have that much history with the Eagles. But I became an Eagles fan more out of the fact that I hated the Cowboys and the Redskins. So,
Randall Cunningham, Ron Jaworski,
bro,
Harold Carmichael.
yep,
Look, I could go on and on with the Eagles. Fred
McNabb.
Farnier,
I mean, even T.O. played with them. I mean, yeah, they
Mike Quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I used to love them guys, even from Shady McCoy to Deshaun Jackson. Yeah, that was my team, man. I loved them. I remember I used to love Andy Reid. You just see that big, fat, red-headed man always looking mad on the sidelines. I love that team. He says, I'll admit 80% of Cowboy fans are delusional. I'm more realistic. Well, that's good to know. I guess the ones that I see with their cars wrapped that says DC for L are probably the ones that are delusional. But anyway, I got the Bills looking really good. Josh Allen, this is another year for him to be able to step up. The Singletary in the backfield. You still got Zach Moss back there. Stephon Diggs is going to do his thing at wide receiver. I just think that this team is loaded. Dawson Knox at your tight end. I think they're loaded on both sides of the ball, Rand. There's not a whole lot of shortcomings that they have. This is a really, really strong team.
Yeah, man. No need to even break them down. Barring injury, they are the new beast in the East. They're going to destroy Miami, New York, and New England. They're going to feast on those boys.
Honestly, this is the division where I think they could sweep their division.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. There ain't too many divisions I could say that. Last year, I could say easily the Cowboys are going to sweep the NFC East. This year, I think it's the AFC East that has a good chance of going 6-0.
Yep, the Jets are not ready to win a game against Buffalo. And you look at both of the quarterbacks, Tua and Jones. For the other two teams, they are not ready to compete with that Buffalo defense. So yeah, they could easily get 6 victories, if not 5, easily.
Exactly. And just a quick peek into their schedule, Rand. They start out at LA. That's gonna be prime time game. That's gonna open us up on Thursday night, September the 8th.
Super Bowl preview right there, boy.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people are calling the Super Bowl preview. When you ask everybody's early picks for the Super Bowl, which we will do that Wednesday before with our Super Bowl picks, that's the going favorite right now. So they're already starting it out that way. Then they go to Tennessee, win. Miami, win. Baltimore, win. Pittsburgh, win. Kansas City, Green Bay, win. I just don't see them. I don't see Green Bay having enough for them. New York, Jets, win. Minnesota, win. I ain't saying they're going 17-0. There's going to be a trip up somewhere in there, but I'm looking at their schedule. They go from Minnesota to Cleveland to Detroit to New England, the Jets, Miami, Chicago, Cincinnati. The Cincinnati game is going to be interesting. The Rams game is going to be interesting. The Kansas City game is going to be interesting. But that's 4 questionables. That's still 13 games.
Yeah.
They're going to win at least 12 to 13 games.
They have the offensive talent. They have the defensive talent.
I just, their history is just what scares me about the 3 back-to-back, years and stuff like that. Hopefully, but they may come with the same attitude as Cincinnati. Hey, our Bungles past was 30 years ago.
Exactly. The boys on the team now, they don't know nothing about what happened back in the 80s and 90s.
So hopefully that doesn't. But those Bills fans are some of the best fans out there. They love them through and through. They come out to Orchard Park in the cold and everything else and celebrate. Sometimes they don't even wear no shirt, which I don't know how they do that in January, but they do it.
And good point, because they're going to be motivated to get that home field advantage overall through the playoffs for this year. It was the only thing that stopped them. It's the
frozen tundra, dude. That's almost worse than Lambeau.
If that game was in Buffalo that they played Kansas City,
Bingo.
That would have been Buffalo's game all day.
All day. Because that's worse than having to go to Lambeau Field.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Northwest New York? Forget about it. Forget about it. You might as well be in Canada. It's crazy. So I really think the Bills are going to be the definite winners in that division, no question, unless they just self-implode or they end up with a bunch of injuries and it just takes them down.
Yeah,
Barring any of that, there's just no way.
Totally agree.
All right. Well, look, we took care of 8 more teams, so that's 16 down, 16 to go. We'll come up with 2 new divisions next week. We do this every single week. The lake effect snow is nothing to play with. Amen, brother. I've been in Indiana seeing that lake effect snow. That is no joke. That is real. But we will come back to you guys again next week. Thank you for tuning in. As always, I'm your host, Brian Parker, with my co-host, Mr. Randall Hargrove. Appreciate y'all. We will see y'all again next week. Y'all take care. Thanks, Rand.